What's going on, everybody? TL Branson here, and today we're going to be talking about A Court of Silver Flames. Thanks for checking out my review of A Court of Silver Flames. If you want to see more content like this, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button so that you can be notified the next time I post more videos. A week ago yesterday, A Court of Silver Flames came out, and I know a lot of you finished it a lot faster than me, but I just finished it last night, 1 week in, and this was a beefy book, so I'm actually kind of proud of myself. So let's just go ahead and jump straight into the review. Overall, this was a pretty good book. So what is A Court of Silver Flames about? Well, it's about Nesta. You all knew that, though, so what is it really about? Well, it's not too spoilery to say that early in the book, in the first 2 or 3 chapters, Nesta has hit rock bottom, and her friends, or her family, if you want to call them that, she doesn't view them as friends, but they have a bit of intervention. They say Nesta needs to stop what she's doing. She is spiraling out of control. Now, I did mention in my previous video where I shared my first thoughts of A Court of Silver Flames, and I'll link that right up here. I shared that I felt like Feyre was being a little too harsh. I mean, her whole reasoning for wanting to get rid of Nesta was that she was an embarrassment and that she would reflect poorly on them as leaders, which is not really what I hoped for from Feyre, to be honest with you. I wanted to see her loving her sister, but let's just forget that for the moment. Nesta ends up at the House of Wind at the top of the high mountain that's 10,000 steps to get down, and the only way that she's going to get back into the city is if someone flies her, which they're not going to do, or she descends down 10,000 steps, which is insane and she's not going to do. So she's stuck at the House of Wind, and she's stuck at Cassian's whim, if you will, and he starts to whip her into shape physically. And as she begins to train and has some discipline, and she also is able to wean away from the alcohol and the men and things like that, she begins to develop a little bit more of a level head. Her training and her focus is able to help her work through some of her demons. Of course, she meets some friends along the way as well, and really, I mean, that's essentially what A Court of Silver Flames is all about. This entire big book is all about Nesta and her training. Now, there is a villain that appears in the story, but the villain isn't mentioned much in the first half of the book. And in the latter half of the book, I felt like the villain was a little underused. Could have been focused on a bit better and more than she was. And then, of course, there is an event that happens after about chapter 60 or so in the book, and it's probably the most exciting in the entire book of those last 20 chapters because of a particular event that I can't mention due to spoilers, but look forward to that event. It's exciting. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what I didn't like. Now, I already mentioned that I felt like the villain was underused, and the fact that the first half of the book is devoid of a villain except for a few passing mentions, it means there's really no plot. There's no purpose. It's just kind of Nesta training and fighting with Cassian. That's all the first half of the book is. Nesta training, fighting with Cassian, going to the library, fighting with other people. Nesta fighting with Cassian, training over and over and over again. And it really was kind of tedious to me. I wasn't a big fan of the lack of plot. Sarah seems like at this point she's just writing things that she wants to write and putting words on page and isn't really caring about plot device and isn't caring about twists and setup and foreshadowing and all that. I mean, this whole book, for how thick it is, didn't have any really big, oh wow, surprising moments. I read some theories on YA fantasy addicts. I didn't mean to read those theories, mind you, but I moderated the spoiler event, and so unfortunately, I did see some theories. Thankfully, the theories that I read actually didn't come to pass, but the theories would have been a better twist than what actually happened in this book. And then the things that did happen were pulled out of nowhere. It's like our magic, pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Sarah J. Maas has a problem with Deus Ex Machina. You might have heard that phrase, and that means that having no foreshadowing, you just pull something out of nowhere. Now, I did really enjoy Nesta's relationships and how she grew with Cassian, though I do felt like there were a lot of moments of misunderstanding for them. That moment of misunderstanding is obviously what created the tension, and so I gave it a pass. Nesta's relationship with Emery and Gwyn, that was great. I love to see those ladies come together and grow together, and the bonds of friendship that they build over the course of the book was fantastic. The training that they went through, the struggles of each individual person, and to see them all work through that. It was like we had not one main character, but 3 main characters. And I just really appreciated that part the best. Also, to see Nesta and Feyre's change towards one another, that was exciting. And then, of course, everybody wants to see Nesta and Cassian, and that was the biggest part of the book. Honestly, every single sex scene, I skipped right over. If you know anything about me, I don't do that. I don't read these books for the romance, I read them for the fantasy. So I got into Throne of Glass, and then of course when A Court of Thorns and Roses came out, I wanted to read that immediately, and that was less on the romance side. And then we hit A Court of Mist and Fury, and that's really where Sarah J. Maas decided to ratchet up the romance, and this is her most sex-filled book yet, and there is some really graphic stuff in here. Now, if I was reading the physical copy, I'd skip right over it. If I was reading the audio, I had a bit of a problem because you can't really skip that too well. Imagine driving your car down the road and you're listening fine and the music is, the volume is loud, and then all of a sudden they start describing some of these scenes in details. Now, it's winter, so my windows weren't down, but imagine listening to that sort of thing if somebody drove up next to you with the window down. Embarrassing! And the audio was really embarrassing to listen to for me, so I had to quickly skip on through that, and if I wasn't at a place where I could skip because I was driving or was hands-free or something, I had to just turn it off and wait till later so that I could skip past it. If you love that sort of thing, you will love this book because it is filled with all of that romance and those sex scenes and that sort of thing. You will like it a lot. Now, some more things that I didn't quite like, and if you are one for not wanting to hear spoilers, please go ahead and skip ahead. I will put words down at the bottom of the screen right now to tell you what minute marker to skip ahead to. But now we're going to talk about some spoilers. So I had 2 major problems with A Court of Silver Flames. First off, that big scene that I was saying I was looking forward to, that was the blood rite. It's kind of like a Hunger Games-esque thing, and Nesta ends up in this Illyrian blood rite, and Cassian was telling her about it earlier in the book, and Cassian told Nesta that only 12 people have made it to the mountain in centuries of the Illyrian blood rite, and only 3 people have actually made it to the top. That is Cassian, Rhys, and Az. Those 3 made it to the top and won the actual blood rite by touching the crystal or whatever it is that they needed to touch. And they were the only people to do it. And so there was this specialness to 12 people made it to the mountain in centuries upon centuries of yearly blood rites, and only 3 of them made it to the top. Well, then Sarah has to go and spoil it with Nesta, Emery, and Gwyn making it to the mountain, which I have no problem with. I'm glad they made it to the mountain. And they start climbing, and they're physically hurt, so they can't climb very well. Then Emery's cousin, all of a sudden, is at the mountain with 6 of his companions. So now, something that only 12 people have made it to in centuries, 10 more people have made it in a single blood rite. Bull, I'm calling bull there, because that is watering down the specialness. Come on, SJM, seriously? And I'm not the only person who thought this way. I shared it with my book group, and they're like, yeah, I felt that shouldn't have happened. Now, what's worse is that Emery and Gwyn go on to win the thing. They go up and touch the crystal, and they get transported away and win. Of course, Nesta doesn't because she has to stay back and fight these people. But I felt like now she's also watering down Cassian, Az, and Rhys's achievement. Like, really? Couldn't you just have them all make it to the mountain and that be a great accomplishment for the women? Of course, And I'm not saying that to be sexist. Please don't take my words as being sexist. All the people in my book group are women, and they feel the same way. I really believe that a better turn of events would have been that Emery and Gwyn turned around to go help Nesta, because Nesta found herself in some tight binds. And I know what happened, but I really would have loved to have seen Emery and Gwyn turn around and say, you know what, it's not worth winning. We're going to stick with our friend. And I feel like that would have been a better turn of events. It wouldn't have watered down the victory as much. And I still felt like it would have been a special mega achievement. Now to the second thing that I had a problem with, and that is the fact that SJM cannot let go of her characters. Feyre has been dealing with a pregnancy, and that pregnancy, she has an Illyrian child. Every single birth of an Illyrian child by a non-Illyrian mother has ended in death. Now, Feyre and Rhys have a bond that they made that if one of them dies, the other will die as well. And so, of course, everyone's freaked out that they're not going to lose just Feyre. They're going to lose Rhys as well. And here at the end of the book, Nesta takes her cauldron power, which the entire book has been trumpeted as death, 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 death. Not once has it said anything about life. It's just death, destruction, death. There's no foreshadowing for life. And then Nesta makes a deal with the cauldron without really any purpose for it. She says, I'll give all my power back. I'll give all my power back if you save Feyre. And, of course, that's exactly what happens. Magically, Feyre is saved, Rhys is saved, and Nesta no longer has the power that really made her cool and unique and awesome. One of the things that I liked the most about the book was how she dealt with that, and I was excited to see how she would go on to use this power in the continuing struggle in the books to come. So even though they defeated Briallen in this book, Koshi is still around, so is Baron. And there are obviously still people to fight in the books to come. And SJM had Nesta give up that cool power to Deus Ex Machina Feyre, to save her. This is Rhys all over again. This is Feyre all over again. Because SJM can't kill her characters. Okay? Feyre and Rhys's story is done. It's done. I didn't even think they were going to be in this book, to be honest with you. I thought they were done. And why can't she just let her characters go? Would it have been awful if Feyre died in childbirth? Yes, it would have been awful. But please, why do we have to pull things out of a hat? Why does it have to poof out of nowhere? At least if you're going to do it, make a logical explanation for it. But this is a problem with SJM, and this is a recurring problem. So those are the two issues that I had with it. Now, those of you rejoining us because you skipped ahead and you didn't want to hear the spoilers, I just shared two issues that I had with the book, two main problems, but otherwise I did really enjoy this book. I am rating A Court of Silver Flames 4 out of 5, a solid 4 out of 5. I can't give it a 5 out of 5 because I did have a few issues with the book, but 4 out of 5, easy. I loved the book. Is it my favorite SJM book? No. I really loved Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. That is my favorite SJM book to date, and she did phenomenal in that one. I just felt like I was sort of missing something in this book. I felt like A Court of Silver Flames, because it didn't really have a plot, because it was mostly about Nesta, and someone said that they felt like SJM wrote this to share her struggle. And if it's a deeply personal book for her, I'm not going to begrudge her that, but as a reader, I wanted more out of this book. Do you have thoughts on the book? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Go ahead and drop those comments down below. If you want to see more content like this, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time.